So we will call this meeting to order. Roll call. Why don't we go around and introduce ourselves? I believe there's one guest here that we're happy to welcome you. And if you want to identify yourself, that's great. If not, please enjoy the meeting. My name is Deborah Telleria. I'm the co-chair of the JJDPC. Throw it to Tony.
Hi, I'm Tony Barrett, co-chair of the commission.
Rebecca Flores, vice chair of the commission.
Melissa, you're on mute.
Melissa Wilson, co-vice chair of the commission.
Johanna Rasmussen, commissioner.
Susan Swope, commissioner.
Victor Lesh III, pending commissioner.
I'm Monroe LeBuise, I'm a commissioner.
Southwick Nori, also commissioner.
Karen Huber-Levy, incoming commissioner.
I'm Susan Jakubowski. I'm one of the judges at the juvenile court.
Good evening. My name is Janae Latrell, and I'm the Deputy Superintendent of Educational Services Division for San Mateo County Office of Education.
Hello, everyone. Aurora Pena, supervising mental health clinician for the BHRS services at the YSC.
Hello, Jahan Clark, superintendent, institutions probation department.
And Melanie Stoffer with juvenile probation.
Hi all, John Fong, interim director with Children and Family Services.
Hi, this is Clara Jekyll. I'm going to be a member of the new Redwood City Police Advisory Committee.
Welcome.
Can you repeat that again? You're going to be a new member of the
Redwood City Police Advisory Committee.
Police Visitor Committee. Okay. Advisory Committee. Thank you. That makes more sense.
Amaya?
I'm the Youth Commission liaison to the JJDPC.
Great. Would anybody else like to introduce themselves?
Wasn't Paul here?
Earlier he was.
Paul's is unable to make it because he's got a training with Human Rights Watch. So he'll have to skip this one.
I have 3 notices of absences. Doug Winter, unfortunately, is unable to join us tonight. Ron Reyes is hoping to be here, but he might be a little late. And Austin will be here but towards the end of the evening. Those are the only updates I have in terms of attendance. All right.
And I know Roxana Enriquez, who's a commissioner-elect, is about to join because I just texted her a link.
There she is. Hi, Roxana.
Hello, good afternoon.
Wonderful. We're just getting started. All right, has everybody had a chance to review the agenda? I have two changes I'd like to make, and then I'll ask for other changes. One is I left off the truancy project, so we'll add that in the update section. And we're going to move the pure court and vote to after the project plan, so Austin has a chance to catch up with us and be here. Are there any other changes to the agenda? Then I move to approve the agenda with those edits.
Second.
So moved. The approval of the minutes. Are there any changes to the minutes? Did you have a chance to read them?
Yes. You always need to have the names of the person who made a motion. And the motion was, this is on page 2, the second bullet, was to recommend this person for appointment to the commission, not to forward with application process. So that should be, both of those should be who moved, who seconded, and to recommend Karen Huber-Levy and Victor Lesher III for appointment to the commission. There's something also. I think that was it.
Thank you, Susan. Does anyone else have any changes? Not hearing any other changes, I move to approve the minutes with those changes.
Second.
At this time, motion approved. This time I'd like to ask if there are any oral communications.
Take the vote.
Do you need to take them for the minutes?
If you make a motion, you need to take a vote.
Otherwise, what do I say?
Otherwise, you say if there are no further corrections, the minutes stand as corrected.
If there are no other edits.
It's unanimous consent. If nobody objects, they're accepted.
Got it. So if nobody has any objections, we will approve the minutes with those edits. All right, any oral communications? Hearing none, we will go ahead and move on to our stakeholder updates. Judge Jakubowski, what's going on at the court these days?
Not really too much. We continue to have most of our youth appear remotely. Occasionally they come to court, but most are still appearing remotely because of COVID. And we don't have a lot of youth in the YSC right now. It's a very small number. And there's really nothing else major that I can think of going on off the top of my head. I know as things sort of open up, we'll probably have more people coming to court, but we still are considering and working on some protocols for continuing to use Zoom for certain types of hearings, as we think it might be helpful for the youth and their families, given some of the resources the families have, given some of the transportation issues. And also, one of the things I think it's helpful is once schools open up, it's a little bit easier for the youth, maybe not to have to miss so much school to come to the court date if need be. So we still are likely to be using Zoom going forward for certain types of hearings, and we're working on that now.
Is it okay now for commissioners who are vaccinated to come visit you in person in the courtroom?
I'm fine with it. I think Judge Edizadi is fine with it. We just have to make sure there's still appropriate social distancing. You have to wear a mask. We have CASA coming in. The CASA trainees come. I think we're fine with it as long as everybody follows all the COVID rules. You do have to sign a tracking sheet when you come in, so we know who's been in the courtroom, and we have the ability to contact you should there be some issue. But we've had the CASA trainees come in person, so we're happy to have the commissioners come. And as I said, if you're interested in knowing what is on the various calendars in terms of how many matters, and if you're interested in juvenile justice, Judge Edizadi and I alternate the days we do the juvenile justice cases. So my days are Mondays and Wednesdays, and Judge Edizadi's days are Tuesdays and Thursdays. And if you want to know how busy the calendars are, feel free to contact my clerk, or I'm sure her clerk, and they can let you know we have X amount of matters on today, rather than days where we really don't have a lot. You come and maybe there's not too much to see. So
I had, sorry to interrupt. I had recently sent out some instructions to commissioners on how to visit court, and it included the phone numbers of and names of the clerks and all that sort of information. So you guys actually should have an email last week from me with a reminder. So just FYI to commissioners.
So we look forward to seeing you in person in the future.
Any other questions for Judge Jakubowski? Right. Moving on to agenda 3B. That's Ron. We're going to go ahead and skip past him. We'll put him at the end. Is Sharon on? Sharon Cho, did she join? All right, we'll skip that one as well. Aurora, can you give us an update for behavioral health and recovery services?
Hello, everyone. Not too much to update. I mean, we continue to provide the telehealth services in the juvenile hall and in the community. We will be working on a plan to have staff return to the office in the hopes of having the face-to-face as the density and the distancing allows. It will be a slow return to the office, but with the expectation that staff will be able to start having the face-to-face. So that's just in the works. I'll keep you
Great.
posted.
Do you have a date for that when you hope to get people back in the office?
We are shooting for mid-May, like May 17th. So we'll see how that unfolds.
We'll check in with you next time on that.
Aurora, when you say in the office, do you mean the BHRS offices, or do you mean in person at the YSC?
So it will be a little bit of both. We do want the staff to be on site, but again, that will depend on how many staff members we can actually have in the office on a daily basis. So not everybody will be able to be back, so we'll stagger staff back into the office so they're at least in 1 or 2 days. And the plan is, again, depending on what things are like on the housing units, given the number of youth, given the number of staff, the GS staff, medical staff, other providers, how many clinicians will be allowed to be on the unit to do face-to-face. There will still be a combination of in-person and telehealth as well, just because, again, we're not going to be able to have everybody on site at the same time. So those are all the details that will be worked out.
And just to follow up to that, for youth that are not in detention but on probation, would they be coming in, if they're taking advantage of your services, would they be coming into the office for appointments?
So the hope is that they are willing to come to the office. Some feel comfortable coming in, and we'll work that out. The other piece of that is having the clinicians meet in the community, whether it's in a park, a driveway, if there's privacy, backyard, that a community location where everybody feels comfortable and allows for confidentiality.
Thanks.
Are there any other questions for Aurora? Janae, can you give us an update for the County Office of Education?
Sure. Good evening, everyone. A couple of us have been in discussions with the Truancy Project that I know Susan will be sharing, updating shortly, but I did want to mention the update that I gave them. We pursued some grant funds to support the reshaping of the Gateway program, and I had shared with you all that we had pursued those funds. We had asked the state for $1 million, and we were not awarded those funds. However, the state has allocated to all districts, including the County Office of Education, some funds to support returning to in-person learning. And we are taking a proposal to our board on May 5th, a request to take a portion of those funds to reshape our Gateway program. So we actually were on the path to close Gateway down in May, and our hope is that our board will support us making an internal investment to reshape the program to be able to serve a total of 60 students. Part of why we've made that request is because we're hearing from numerous districts that the number of students that have gone missing completely during COVID times, and that they know will be returning with significant gaps in education and likely need some additional supports around some mental health and social emotional supports. They're already seeing students in need. And so our hope is that us expanding our model will be able to support our districts as they better support their students, and will help more students stay engaged in their learning. So I will keep you posted on that, but fingers crossed, we're moving from being able to not have to close down a program that's providing an essential service. And I think many of you know that in the past, we've historically served high schools, but over the last few years, we've heard from more and more middle schools that they have students that either have some trauma histories that are exhibiting in some behavior concerns that are not leading to them being successful on campus. And so we are also hoping that this model will support the 7th and 8th grade students, and then also 9th grade. We'll cohort the students separately, but we're also hoping to partner with Effective School Solutions, which is a comprehensive therapeutic model to help increase the emotional resilience of our students and help them develop skills for self-regulation. So I will definitely keep you all posted. So wish us luck. And then wanted to just update you, as we've talked in the past, all of our schools are moving towards more and more in-person learning. Everybody is close to in-person for all students as much as possible. The state of California gave us a special permission to reduce the way in which we serve students during the COVID time. So typically we have a minimum of some instructional minutes. Right now, that law is set to sunset in June, but we actually noticed across the state that some students have performed better, and that the hybrid model or the distance model actually can support some students that were not being served well or were not successful in the full in-person model. So right now, we're hoping that the governor will be allowing for some relaxed expectations so that we can continue to benefit from some of the learnings that we've had through the COVID time. But we also recognize that getting students back in person is full-time is right for some students. So in short, we're hoping that the state will allow for us to continue to diversify the ways in which we support students. And we anticipate that the students that have been under-supported or haven't been served to their full need might be able to be served if we can expand our offerings as a profession. And so those, I would say, are our two big updates. I don't know if anyone has questions.
Are you able to generalize what kind of students have thrived in the hybrid learning model with technology?
Yes, thanks, Melissa, for giving me the generalized caveat. So yes, oftentimes students that were struggling either on an ongoing basis or for periods of time with some social anxiety or some school refusal. So we definitely have seen students in some cases feel more comfortable being in a classroom setting in the remote way. And that's just one example. We've also seen students that maybe have struggled with certain, certain gaps that they're less, we've had some hubs in addition to the online. So we've definitely seen students kind of get some specialized attention, and we've seen some students turn around. And yet I can also say that this model has not benefited some students. And so some students that were thriving in person, right? So we just want to make sure we don't lose the good that was gained as we move back, but we're hoping that the state will continue to support us in diversifying the ways in which schools can serve their students. And so candidly, we've been in lots of conversations with the districts. Some are able to pivot faster than others. And, there's lots of conversations with our unions, et cetera. And so we're all stretching and growing to hopefully meet the needs of all students.
I have a second question. You're so good with the stretching and growing. It's very, very growth-oriented mindset. Can you walk me through, as I understand it, new youth who come into the facility are doing paper packets. Can you walk me through the decision to have them on paper packets instead of joining via computer the classroom more immediately? Because things are technologically based?
Yeah, so to be honest, I other than, and I'm interested in maybe my probation partners chiming in. I don't know if it's part of the new intake process because of COVID, but it's my understanding that our students are using their technology and are getting access to direct instruction on a regular basis.
My impression was that they were doing the paper packets initially until they were cleared. Is that Jehan?
Yes, I can speak for probation for institutions. For those that are still on the quarantine, during the quarantine period, they are given packets. And then once they come off of the quarantine period, they go to school or have a computer, a Chromebook assigned to them.
Are there any obstacles right now for them such that the packets are necessary rather than attending classes immediately via computer?
Well, right now, when the instruction was still being offered virtually, then we were able to utilize the Chromebooks. But once it went back, once it stopped being asynchronous, then we went back to giving packets.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's live instruction for the youth that have been here past the 14-day quarantine period.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Janae, I have a quick question. How many kids are at Gateway right now?
Right now, I think we have 8 enrolled. Over the years, we've seen a significant decrease. And then with COVID, we just saw that decrease even further. What I'm happy to say is that the 8 that we're serving, we've been serving since November. And so they are some of the only high school students that have been getting in-person direct instruction in our Court and Communities program and throughout San Mateo County. But again, that's just not a cost-effective way to do business. And, we've frankly spent a lot of time working with our districts because candidly, as the county, we don't need to run a school program, but we have lots of ways that we can support schools and districts as they support their students. But if our schools need us to run a program to serve students that they're not able to effectively serve right now, then that's a space we want to be able to meet. However, it's got to be cost effective. So that's what we're hoping the investment of these dollars will help us revamp our model, strengthen the quality of we're really wanting to kind of do a restore and return model with some solid data and some solid assessments with students. And we are hoping our districts, similar to some of the conversations we've had around Hillcrest and Canyon Oaks, we're hoping our districts, in fact, we've been in conversations with them almost daily since we learned about the funds. We know our districts need us to help them and support them in this space. But we also are confident that they're recognizing that this is not a space that students will go to and not return, that they are recognizing that they need to better develop their own services to keep students engaged in their community.
Janae, on Gateway, when do you think you'll find out if you are getting the money? And then like, how long does it take to expand it to 60? And so, yeah, when, ideally, when would you be operational at 60? And second question, I can't remember if I'm getting this right or not, but is it true that Gateway does, or you might want it in the future to have some boarding capability where some students live there, or am I getting that wrong?
No, no, we're not looking to do a residential right now.
So it's day school.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. So then how fast do you think you can get to 60?
Well, to be honest, right now we're meeting with each of our districts in the county and we're exploring how many students that they anticipate that will need to serve for them starting in the fall. But we're looking to go, ideally what we would like to see is us going from our current 6 to 8 to up to 25 to 30 starting in the fall. But we are going to be partnering with Effective School Solutions, which is a intensive kind of school revamping model that really brings in much more robust therapeutic services. So ultimately we want to serve 60, but we recognize in this first semester, especially, and maybe even the first year, we're going to need to invest dollars, time, energy, and resources for our staff to develop their skills to be able to do both robust instruction, A through G, CTE work, continue to do our project change partnership, and have therapists in this setting on a daily basis. And so in short, starting with 25 or 30 in the fall and ultimately getting up to 60 plus.
Janae, a quick question. You shared about seventh graders, middle schools being a need there. Can you please share more about the schools? What districts exactly, please?
I can share the districts that we've heard from, but I don't want to necessarily suggest that they're the only ones that are needing support. We've definitely have heard San Mateo Foster City has expressed interest. In fact, they were at our informational session today. We've heard from South City that they might have some middle school students, Redwood City. Those are the ones that are standing out right now. Cabrillo has explored the possibility of middle school students for the last couple of years.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Janae, it's Kate. Sorry to have my camera off. I know we just talked recently.
Yeah.
I'm just sort of curious in terms of the sort of philosophy of investing and expanding Gateway. I understand when there was sort of the state money, but now if we're talking about the local county money, the model of investing in Gateway and expanding Gateway as opposed to pushing resources into the districts, and sort of how, what's the thinking there as far as making that choice between, taking students into Gateway versus pushing into those districts?
Great question, Kate. Well, honestly, we constantly balance our role at the COE as serving students. As this group knows really well, our Court and Community, Hillcrest, Kemp, Canyon Oaks, and Gateway. But ideally, we would love to see all districts be able to serve the whole range of their students. So we are constantly in a dance trying to help our districts develop capacity. But when then they don't have capacity, having our ability to meet their needs, the gaps. So honestly, what we've heard over the years with our districts is, they're all in different places in their ability to meet a wide range of student. And so frankly, to some extent, because of the small size of many of our districts, there isn't enough, there's sometimes need, but they're 1, 2, 3, or 4, right? And so together, there isn't an economy of scale to invest in certain positions. Frankly, there's a lot of challenges in hiring certain positions in our county. So collectively, if we come together, what we've found is that we're able to help our districts meet a need that they're unable to meet individually. That's part of it. The other part, frankly, is that our districts are also receiving their own funds to do expanded learning and in-person learning. And as we've met with them and talked them through their plans for their funds, many of them are still not in a space where they have yet developed their own services to serve students. And yet they have expanded more. Many of them have developed new programs. Many of them are definitely looking to continue hybrid learning. Many of them are looking to expand some independent study services. What we're excited about is that we really feel like we have so many strengths with project change, with our location to CSM, with our ability to support students that are transitioning out of Hillcrest, with our, robust CTE work at the County Office of Ed. In other words, we have some unique strengths that we can bring to a student population that we know will uniquely benefit. But again, Kate, it's ongoing communications with our districts about helping them do a better job. And we did have the candid conversations with ourselves, like maybe if we get out of the game, maybe our districts will be able to figure a solution, right? But that doesn't seem to really be the space for a variety of reasons. And so we still feel confident that there are students that have needs that won't be met. And that's part of why we decided to move in this direction.
Thanks for the thorough response.
Any other questions for Janae? Thank you, Janae. Moving on to probation. Melanie and Jahan.
Okay, well, I could start.
Oh, you want to go?
You want to go, Melanie? Go ahead,
Sure.
Melanie.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Good evening. I'll give our standard updates for everyone. We currently have 211 youth on probation. We have 83 youth going through the intake assessment center investigations phase. So those are youth that we're going to look at their cases to see if we can divert them to either programs like victim impact awareness, or if we can assess them and put them on a contract, whether that be 90 days or 6 months. We have 17 youth on electronic monitoring. And we have 5 youth at DJJ. 2 kids in placement, which is amazing. So that means we're keeping kids in their homes. And I've never seen such low numbers in my whole career. So that's a really positive thing. We have 9 kids who are receiving extended foster care services. So those would be the youth that have been in placement that return home. So they age out of the system and then continue to receive what we call extended foster care services. And I know that at the last meeting, I had mentioned that I would talk about some of the changes in the assessment center investigations unit to hopefully divert more youth. And this is actually not something new. I think I had said last month that it was a new process. It's really something that we've done throughout the years when the assessment center was originally created. It's just that for a period of time, we were sending cases with restitution amounts of less than 1,000 to the DA. And now we're back to looking at those cases, anything under $1,000, and trying to divert those youth if we can. So for instance, if we have, let's say, a vandalism charge and there's roughly $500 worth of restitution, instead of sending that case to the DA's office, we're going to assess to see, can we put this youth on a contract to maybe refer them to the Victim Impact Awareness Program. And at some point through that program, the youth would likely be able to do mediation with the victim and then determine, is the youth going to pay the victim back, or did they come up with some alternative option to contracts, the 90-day contracts and 6-month informal contracts go up over time. And that's really what I was referring to at the last meeting. So currently we have 6 kids with contracts right now. And I think that's it. Any questions?
Yes,
Melanie, I have a question.
Sure.
I'm curious of what has changed that is allowing you to see this reduced numbers of placements.
Oh, a lot of things. So there are
I don't know if it's my system or something else, but I
not
can't hear
yours.
you.
I think it's Melanie's.
No, it's hers.
really strict.
We can't hear you, Melanie.
Let me,
I'm sorry, Melanie, we've missed the answer.
okay, hold on.
Problem with your
Can you hear,
speaker.
is it, yeah, I don't know what's going on with my internet. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Perfect. I'll just keep my video off while I'm talking. So with placement over the years, the last, I think since 2012, 2013, congregate care reform, there are so many guidelines that we have to adhere to when we place a youth out of the home. And so really, we do a lot of gatekeeping, if you will, before we even consider a recommendation for out-of-home placement. So we look at what services have been offered in the home. Have we really, worked with the youth and the family? And we want to make sure that that is the last resort before we remove a youth from the home, because we know that that can create trauma for a youth and the family. And then while a youth is in placement, we have to try to get them home as quickly as possible. So we've just taken additional steps within the department to assess whether or not we really need to send a youth to out-of-home placement.
Thanks.
I hope that answered your question.
Melanie, I have two questions. One was, I don't think you mentioned how many youth are in the YSC, but maybe Jehan's going to do that when she does her update. You can tell me. But the other thing is 211 youth on probation is definitely a lower number than in recent months. And is that also because of this sort of additional effort to divert kids that you were talking about?
Yes, and what happened with COVID was we had a backlog of terminations. And so over the course of this last year, I've met with the DA, the private defender program. We've had a group that's met consistently, probably 10 or 12 times over the course of this last year, because we had our terminations combined with our ceilings. And what was happening was the cases were getting stuck because of issues or concerns coming up around a ceiling, and the terminations were being put on hold. So what we did was we separated the two out so that a termination, if a PO identifies a youth that's completed their probation conditions and needs to be terminated, we've separated that from the ceiling process. And we had a backlog of those cases, and now they're going through a lot faster. And so that's why the numbers have come down since our last meeting.
Got it. Interesting.
I have a question, Melanie.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, I'm new to the commission, but I'm not new to the system. So I'm wondering, how much does it cost to have the 17 youth being on EMP?
How much does it cost for the families?
Yes, correct. Are you guys still charging families for this?
No, families are no longer charged for the fees. Now, let's say, for instance, the youth cuts off their ankle monitor and discards it and runs. If we file a petition with or if we refer a petition to the DA's office for that equipment that is missing or lost, then there might be an amount associated with that the youth would have to pay if it's a sustained offense in the court. But no, we no longer charge the EMP fees for families.
Okay, and are you guys charging the parents for keeping the youth at the hall or either at the girls' camp or even sending them to Canyon Oaks? Okay,
No.
cool.
No.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Sorry about my connection issue. I'll try to get that figured out before our next meeting. Is that all?
Oh, Melanie, I had a question. It's Melissa Wilson. I think hi, thank you so much for everything. I think I don't always listen to numbers, but I paid attention when I heard 83 youth are in investigations. Is that an unusual number, or it just seems like a high number to me, but I haven't been a good commissioner. So as to interpret that number. Can you talk us through, or is that the result of you combining the two offices, or?
No, actually, the numbers have come down. So even just looking at November, we had 126 youth. And, so since November, it's gone down, and now we're at 83. And yeah, so the numbers continue to go down. Mm-hmm.
And investigations is when they're in the adjudication process, or is it when you're deciding whether to refer it to the DA's office or to do an informal probation?
Yeah, so the assessment center in the investigations phase is really where we're looking at the case, we're looking at the charges, we're trying to determine, can we divert this youth, or is this a charge that has to go to the DA's office, like a 707B offense, or if a youth is 14 and it's a felony, that would be an automatic send to a mandatory send to the DA's office. Mm-hmm. And then if we can't divert the youth and we end up referring a petition to the DA's office, then it goes through the formal, we would call the investigations phase, which is the probation officer will meet with the youth after an arraignment hearing, and then because it's likely going to be set for PTC, so meet with the youth, do an assessment, and gather information for a social studies report. Actually, I take that back. That's after the offense has been sustained. To prepare a report for the court with a recommendation based on the sustained offense.
Right, and that's in investigations as well?
Yeah, so really now that we've merged the two units.
Right, exactly, okay.
Yeah.
That was sort of what I was trying to get at right now. So that means it's both kids coming in, youth coming in for the first time when you're evaluating that, youth who are going through the adjudication process, and youth who are waiting for their dispositions. All three of those are in that category.
Right, so
investigations.
Yeah, because it's essentially the intake phase. Mm-hmm. It could be that, the youth is either going to come in because they're booked into the juvenile hall, or it's an out of custody referral from a police department. So then when the probation officer gets that case, they're going to assess, can we divert this youth, or do we need to go through the formal court process? And so it can get a little confusing because of the name Assessment Center and Investigations Unit, but really it's to determine, can we divert the youth and provide services without the youth going through the formal court process, or do we need to, send it to the DA's office and have it go through the court process for a disposition?
Thank you so much. That's great.
And Victor?
Yeah, thank you. So I just have a couple of questions. I'm also pending commissioner, so forgive my ignorance. I'm trying to get caught up to speed. I'm a trained social worker, so I'm very familiar with the child welfare system, and I am familiar with, I don't like to use this word, but the juvenile delinquency system, the 600 system. So, but I just had a question in regards to the youth that you're considering for diversion. I'm assuming that they get screened for trauma and mental health issues as well. And then upon that intake, whether or not they're diverted or not, are they still referred to services to treat those conditions, or do they only receive like those services if they're not diverted? So I guess I'm trying to figure out are they going to receive those services regardless of your decision?
Yeah, so if we divert a youth, so the way that the process works is that when we get either through a detention or an out of custody referral, let's say for instance, it's a misdemeanor battery, and we know that, okay, we don't necessarily need to keep that youth in custody if they've been detained, or if it's an out of custody referral and the battery comes to us. Let's say it's a youth who's, battered their parent. we would want to assess that case, and we would have that youth meet with our mental health clinician to determine, you know, can we divert this case and maybe put this youth on a contract so that they don't have to be put on probation and resolve the issue at the lowest level. But yeah, to answer your bigger question, which is, are we assessing for trauma? We have a set of questions that we ask, you know, every family to determine what the issues are in the home, what the risk factors are, and we, you know, if a youth comes in, let's say for a vandalism, and we refer them to the Victim Impact Awareness Program, and that's the only referral that we make for them. When we're talking to our families on the phone, we're really assessing what the needs are and making recommendations to the family. Like, you know, it might be worthwhile to get your son into counseling. It sounds like he has some anger problems, and, you know, we're here as a resource. We want to support you. We also have the Youth Outreach Program, and that's offered through child welfare. You might be familiar with that, Victor. And we can also refer families to that program without a youth even having a referral to the department. Again, our goal is we want to divert as many youth as possible because once a child gets into the system, as we all know, it's hard for them to get out. And so we want to support, you know, youth and families the best way that we can. But yeah, we're always looking for that and how we can provide support to our families.
So just to clarify, if they, I mean, obviously then in probation, you're going to give them the services, but if they also get this contract, you're also providing them services. If not, if you're just making a referral to Victim Impact Awareness and your clinician or your screener sees some symptoms that the family might need to want to take a look at, you'll advise the family or suggest to the family they should take a look at it, but it's really up to them whether they're going to address those issues or not.
Yeah, because if there isn't a formal court order for counseling, then we can't, you know, we can't tell a youth that they have to participate. But again, when we're going through that process of determining, should we divert this youth or not, we're always talking to the parents about counseling services or, you know, asking those bigger questions. What supports do you need? And that's where we really rely on our CBOs as well as partners.
Thank you.
Sure. Any other questions? Okay, thank you. I'll turn on my video again. Thanks.
Jehan?
Okay, for institutions, not too much has changed. I mean, I think from our last meeting, we had opened up to service providers. We do have a few that are coming back in person. Like I stated earlier, as far as school, that is, and it's been in person, actually going through testing right now. We just had our BSTC inspection last week or the week before, and that seemed to have went well. Our bookings, we pretty much the only change that we have with that is we now allow for our EMP violations and our FPP violations, which is under a separate court order. We're still monitoring just regular short-term violations and still really monitoring who is booked in. Kind of what I shared, you know, in previous meetings. We're really taking a look at who we're booking in. So regardless of COVID, even once we open back up, we're really monitoring who we're accepting, what type of crime it is, because otherwise we just let the police agency know that they can, you know, still file something and it can be handled out of court. We're just not going to accept them in. You know, we're really trying to make sure that whoever is booked in is there because they truly are a safety and security risk, a risk to the community and things like that. And then for those of you who've gone on a tour and who know me well, I'm happy to say we have actually started our mural project. And the youth have been really involved, youth and staff. And actually going really well. And our art therapist who is leading the project, she's actually just surprised that the youth are moving as quickly as they are. So that's pretty much it for institutions. Does anyone have any questions?
Can you give us the numbers for the hall and for Camp Camp?
Sorry, I did not say that. So we currently have 10 youth in custody, 8 males, 2 females, and then 6 youth at our girls' camp.
They've come back down again. That's great.
Yeah, I mean, last week we were up to 18, so it's like where it's like a yo-yo. So we're on the downside this week. Yes.
Great. Questions for Jehan?
I see Johanna's hand up.
Thank you. My background is almost the same color as my hand, so it's sometimes easy to miss. So my question was regarding the numbers of girls at Camp. Are those all San Mateo County kids, or are there any kids from other neighboring counties?
So there's 4, I believe, from San Mateo and 2 from Sonoma.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Okay. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jehan.
Thank you, Jehan. Was Ron able to join us? I'm desperate looking for the email that he sent me because I had it up on my iPad and it must have gotten closed. All right.
Deborah, I did see Sharon Cho join.
Sharon, there she is. Sharon, give us an update.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sharon with the DA's office. I don't have an update. There's been no changes. Just glad to be here joining the rest of you.
I needed you to go longer. I'm still looking for that email. Did I put that? All right, so you know what? So I don't keep you all waiting. Why don't we move on to inspection signups and we'll move back as soon as I find this email. Rebecca?
Sure, not much on my end, but so inspection signups went out. We do have some commissioners that have signed up. I'm still missing a lead for the Youth Services Center. I have a lead for Camp. Thank you, Deborah. And a lead for schools. Melissa, thank you again. And then we need a lead for Canyon Oaks. Doug, I believe Doug mentioned that he's willing to co-lead that with someone. Right now we have Joanna and Doug on there, so he's willing to co-lead with someone if we can't find anyone. But if you haven't signed up yet, please do so. We need more commissioners at Canyon Oaks. And another one, I think there's enough for Camp and YSC in the schools. We're just missing Canyon Oaks. And new commissioners, you are welcome to sign up as well. As I mentioned in the email, we will provide some sort of training for you so don't be afraid to sign up. And that's all I got.
Rebecca, I apologize. I was just going to say, I have not signed up, but I will, and probably can help out on Canyon Oaks.
That would be fantastic. Thank you so much.
Rebecca, what's the timing for inspections this year?
The timing, I haven't quite gathered that yet, but we do typically we want to start in June, and then we need to complete all inspections before October, I believe.
So Rebecca, I'm sorry.
I was just saying, go ahead, Johanna.
So I put in the chat, but I'm happy to take the lead on YSC. If you need a lead for that, I'm happy to do that.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you.
Same here, Rebecca, or Camp. I'm not able to be Canyon Oaks just because with AYP, so I rather do the other ones.
Camp?
Sure, yes.
I'll put you down for Camp. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
All righty.
Great. I know we're all hoping to come out of COVID sooner rather than later, but it looks like, if the county's going to open up or the state's going to open up in mid-June, a lot of these will probably get started, late summer, early fall, especially for the schools, because a lot of the schools get back in session. But we managed it last year to do them kind of late third quarter, early fourth quarter, and get them turned around in time. I think we're going to end up doing that again this year just because of COVID. And then going forward, just for new commissioners, we usually like to kick these things off around February, March, start to get signups, start to get the ball rolling so that we can kind of evaluate the inspections over time and kind of roll them out throughout the year. We just don't have the luxury right now because we'd actually really like to be able to see these facilities in person this year. So thank you, Rebecca, for the updates and for coordinating all of this. I found my email. I'll be happy to know. So Ron is not here because he's part of a leadership team sponsoring 2 assembly bills right now. He sent me some updates. The update is going to provide to the commission. In the legislation, this legislative session, there are a number of important juvenile reform bills to follow. He's going to talk about 4 bills. The first one is AB 503, Endless Probation for California Youth. The author is Mark Stone. If passed, this bill will create statutory guidelines to tailor the length of time youth spent on wardship probations and ensure that the conditions of probation are reasonable and developmentally appropriate. AB 333, Participation in a Criminal Street Gang, enhanced sentence. The author is Kamliger. If passed, this bill will redefine the terms pattern of criminal gang activity and criminal street gang in the description. For the purposes of the gang offense enhancement and alternate penalty under the STEP Act, and requires bifurcation of gang-related prosecutions from prosecutions that are not gang-related. AB 624, Youth Fair Process Act. The author is Bauer Cahan. It creates the right to appeal a juvenile court transfer order to adult court. As this morning, this was going to be a consent bill, meaning there is no opposition to this one. AB 1127, the author is Santiago. If passed, this bill will amend the current law that allows juvenile strikes to be used as sentencing enhancements in adult court. AB 1127 requires a 2/3 majority vote to pass. I can't answer any questions about this because all I have is the email. But if you want to send in any questions, either in the chat or via email, I can follow up with Ron and we can get answers to any of the questions regarding that legislation.
Deborah, could you send me that email so I can just add it to the notes?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
It is just stunning to see all the legislation and the changes that we're getting to witness in juvenile justice, and I'm so delighted by it. I just never thought I'd hear these ideas.
It is an exciting time. All right, we're going to move to item number 5, alternatives to incarceration recommendation, and the recommendation to the Board of Supervisors. Monroe?
Yeah, so we have 10 minutes for this item, and in order to leave time for questions and discussion and a vote, I thought I would just spend a couple of minutes focusing on the process here and not all of the content, because there's a lot of content there, and it was distributed ahead of time to commissioners to review, and it's in the agenda packet. So certainly if there are questions and comments on the content, then after I just walk through the process, we can talk about that. But I thought it would be helpful just to give people an idea of what happens next after we vote, assuming we approve this item. Up to this point, the drafting in this letter and the drafting of this suggested resolution for the Board of Supervisors has mainly been done by a small group of people on the commission. And the idea here is that we are sending a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors that they form a working group that is going to spend at least a couple of years looking at alternatives to what's defined in the resolution as institutional detention, where institutional detention means it's detention that resembles a penal institution, right, with jail cells or with barbed wire on walls. And there are some elements of that at the YSC, in addition to the fact that the YSC is well under capacity, and so there's a potential for better use of the county's money there. So anyway, the idea here is that this recommendation gets sent to the Board of Supervisors. The ask is to form this working group. That this working group, which is defined in the resolution, come together and deal with the complicated questions that are involved with seeking out alternatives for detention. So San Francisco, for example, passed something in 2019, and their working group is still at work and aiming to wrap up their work 2.5 years later at the end of 2021. Supervisor Canepa will be the sponsor for this, and this is a draft resolution, so it would certainly go through comments, questions from other supervisors, from county council, and so forth, and so we'll continue to be engaged in that, but then the ask in the letter is that this be passed by June or the end of June, so that by the middle of this year, the work can begin to actually form this working group. So those are some sort of high level, give you some high level idea of like what comes next. But basically, in short, we want to send this over and then try to guide it through to passage at Board of Supervisors, so that then this working group can be formed. So I'll stop there, and if there's any discussion or questions, I'm happy to take questions or hear comments before we vote.
Hi, Monroe, it's Karen. I just wanted to know if you could give us a few comments about the likely reception at the Board of Supervisors.
Yeah, so it's a little hard to predict because I only know Supervisor Canepa's position really well, and I think he made that clear last time he visited us. But I do think that there is positive reception to this with other members of the Board of Supervisors. The ask, just to be clear, is to form a working group to develop a plan, right, and to work closely with all the system partners and community members to do that. So that's an easier ask than something more, something more specific about what to do with juvenile hall. And in the time that we've spent talking with other supervisors, I do think that there's reception for this, but we'll see. And that's kind of the work of the sponsor, specifically Supervisor Canepa, and of course we'll do whatever we can to help. Susan, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I had a few comments. On page 4, you're talking about therapeutic non-institutional places of detention for youth who are required by the court to be detained as alternatives to the YSC. And I'm wondering, how does this work with what the state has done in doing away with long-term residential facilities and instituting the STRTPs? Do we have any idea about how this would work with that? I just see this as a possible problem that we somehow will need to surmount.
So just to be sure I'm clear on your question, when you say the state doing away with, are you talking about the closing of DJJ, or are you talking about STRTPs?
We
Closing of-
supposedly no longer have long-term residential treatment programs that we used to have, where young people could go to live for 6 months, a year, 2 years, depending on
Right.
what was going on with them personally and how much treatment they needed, or whether there was a safe place for them to return home, or, you know,
Right.
and we can't do that anymore.
Well, so my understanding, Susan, is that the licensing for a residential home is more difficult now, but that it is possible. Like, for example, Canyon Oaks went through that process and does have that license. So so we have to. That I think I agree that could be a hurdle that we need to overcome. But the main goal here is to change any elements of detention that are potentially, you know, net negative in terms of causing more trauma, right, to youth.
Right, right.
And so, you know, I leave open the possibility that there could just be a redesign of the YSC. You know, that might be possible as well. So, so we'll have to see, but that is a difficult hurdle in terms of licensing for residences, but not complete. You know, it can be overcome. And that's why I think that's one of the reasons why one of the experts that's recommended to be in this working group is an expert on, you know, detention facilities that that are more small and home-like, and that can get built if necessary.
I think that your time frame is quite reasonable, and I also think your working group is well thought out. There was one other thing on page 5. This is part of number 8. You're talking about a restorative justice approach. I would delete reconciliation. Reconciliation is never the objective of restorative justice. Restorative justice is to repair the damage, and repairing the damage doesn't always mean restoring a relationship or establishing a relationship. So I think I would make that an effort should be made to facilitate sessions between youth victims of crime and their community at large that include acknowledgement of harm caused and agreement as to how the harm can best be repaired, or words to that effect.
Okay, that's a good comment. That's a good edit, and I'm happy to make that. And I might follow up with you on the exact wording.
Sure.
But just commissioners should know when we vote on this, it will be, you know, with that amendment.
Okay, and I just had one other question. You indicate what the working group shall do, which is great. Number 6 says reports every 6 months, but to whom? I think we just need to add who they'll report to.
Yeah, you know, I actually left that purposely broad because I think it's a public report. It's essentially like a commission, right? Like it will be, I'm sure, governed by the Brown Act, and the reports can be made to the public. I mean, specifically, this working group will be accountable to the Board of Supervisors, who will appoint all the members. So I guess I could add a report to the Board of Supervisors, but yeah, I'll add that. But
it's also to the report.
What's that?
That would be a public report. Any
right.
report given to them is going to be a public report. So but I just think they could change that if they want to.
Right.
But I think it makes sense to say, we're making a report, but where are we going to send it?
Yeah. Okay. Noted. I will add that.
So those were my comments. Well done.
Thank you. Are there any, hey, Victor, just before I call on you, because you're not a commissioner yet, I'm going to ask, are there any other comments or discussion by commissioners? Okay, and if not, then we can make a motion soon, but Victor, please go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to say it was a fantastic resolution. I think the way you connect the dots between mental health and substance abuse, and how it can a setting can exacerbate those symptoms and how it could also re-traumatize the youth was just very well put and thought out. And I sent this already to you in an email, but I just wanted to reiterate it, that the only thing that I saw is that there's definite parts of the document or the resolution where it speaks to trauma, but then sometimes trauma is just left out. It was probably an oversight, and I just want to make sure that, and specifically I saw whenever there's it's a whereas statement and it's talking about mental health and substance abuse, that we also include trauma in there too. So that way then we have a fully comprehensive trauma-informed document as well. Because, and just to give a little reasoning behind that is just the reason why you break up mental health and substance abuse is because if you have substance abuse, you have to deal with the substance abuse first. Now it's co-occurring, so you also deal with the mental health, but there are two different methods and two different methods of practice to deal with those issues. And the same thing with trauma. Someone has trauma as well too. There is, you have to deal with that as well too. So you just can't do the mental health and suspect to also handle the trauma. It doesn't work that way. So, which we now know. I mean, before we didn't know that, but we know that now. So I would just like, to make sure that we add that in all the way through the document.
Yeah, thanks for reminding me of that email you sent me. And I agree, there are a few, just so that everyone's clear, there are 2 or 3 mentions of mental health and substance abuse issues, like that's the phrase. And what Victor is suggesting is just that phrase become trauma, mental health, and substance abuse issues. So I think that I agree that's a good add, and that's another edit I can make. Okay, so with that, I'll make a motion that the commission vote to approve this letter to the Board of Supervisors and the attached suggested resolution with the edits from Susan and Victor that we've discussed here. And that's the motion, I think, to approve the letter and the resolution with those edits that we've discussed.
I'll
That's
second.
my- Seconded, okay.
I'm sorry, who is the second for Rebecca who's taking it?
I think it was
Both
Johanna.
Susan and Joanna.
Susan and Joanna are the seconds, great. Are there any other comments before we move on to a vote? All right, we'll do a roll call vote. Please say yes, no, or abstain. Tony?
Yes.
Rebecca?
Yes.
Melissa?
Yes.
Paul, he's not here. Monroe?
Yes.
Suffolk?
Yes.
Johanna?
Yes.
Susan?
Yes.
Did Austin join us?
I thought he.
All right, he's not here. Mine answer is yes as well. Motion passes to approve the letter and the attached resolution for alternatives to incarceration.
Thank you, everybody. And I'll keep you posted on the next steps.
Thank you, Monroe. Johanna, would you like to give us the social media update?
Sure, I've got 3 updates tonight, so let me get the right paperwork. Okay, so since we last talked at the last meeting, we formed a subcommittee, and our subcommittee members consist of MJ Hart, who is a potential commissioner, Amaya Nori, who is on the San Mateo County Youth Commission, myself, Tony, Deborah, and Monroe. And I was able to find out that the county already has guidelines and protocols in place for social media. So we don't have to reinvent the wheel. Basically, we just agree to follow those guidelines, and they will create the accounts for us and then give us the usernames and passwords to maintain the accounts. We are hoping to meet with Krista with County Communications soon. We've been trying to reach her, and we just need to get that scheduled as soon as we can make contact with her. Another thing that I learned is that I'm the liaison for San Francisco Juvenile Justice Commission. And I found out that they were able to stop taking minutes of their meetings because they have video archives of their meetings. So they no longer need to prepare or keep and approve minutes. So this is something that I know there's been some discussion about time limitations. So this may be something that may help us to get more things on our agenda and free up some time and space. So let's see if there is anything else. So basically, once we get the accounts up and running, once the county does that for us, then the subcommittee will meet. We don't have a time yet on how frequently we'll meet, but we'll be working to work out the granular details on how we'll move forward with that. So that's my update for right now. And for anyone who wasn't joining us last time, we're looking at Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter. Oh, and also we're looking to redesign our webpage if possible, and creating a logo for our commission.
Exciting stuff. Does anybody have any questions for Johanna? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to the project plan updates. Monroe, can you give us an update on the Communicate with Elected Officials project?
Yes. Wait, am I on mute? No, I'm
Nope.
not on mute. Yes, give me 1 second to open this other document, but we have continued to do outreach to elected officials in the county. One person that we're having an upcoming meeting with is Charles Stone. He's the mayor of Belmont, and he's also a candidate for District 2 supervisor to take Carol Groom's seat when she terms out in 2022. So that should be an interesting one. In addition, we met recently with Diana Reddy, who's a council member in Redwood City. And also, since our last meeting, we actually had several meetings because she kept asking for more time because she was so interested, with Ligia Andrade Zuniga, who is a board trustee at San Mateo Union High School District. So yeah, it's been a productive month, and we're looking to, I'm looking to set up 2 more meetings with Councilmember Diane Pappin from San Mateo, and also Councilmember Giselle Hale from Redwood City, getting introduced through a friend of mine. So those are that's some of the outreach we've been doing to elected officials this month.
Thank you.
Any questions or suggestions? Okay.
Susan, can you give us an update on the diversion programs in San Mateo County, and then follow that up with the truancy project as well?
Okie doke. The diversion program, it needs a fresh start. I think it's a good thing that Johanna went ahead and contacted her police people. And I think when the person who's supposed to be doing it isn't getting it done in a timely manner, that somebody else should say, hey, I'll take over here. So I'm going to need to regroup with Austin and Doug, because I've contacted the people, the police departments I was going to, but I don't know that what's going on with trying to have a meeting. So we're kind of on a hiatus right here. As far as the truancy project, we're really working hard on that. We had a meeting at the beginning of April with the whole committee and brainstormed so that everybody could have input on as to what they thought we should be doing and what they thought our product should be. And then Kate was kind enough to meet with me, and we consolidated that into a straw man project mission and short description and task list. And last Friday, the group met again and we're working our way through that. So I expect that, and we're not stopping gathering information as we go along anyway. So it's chugging along, but I think this is going to be a long-term process. It's what we're looking at doing is pretty expansive. So I hope that we'll at least have a revised completed project plan by next month when we meet again. But people seem to be really enjoying the discussions and feel like we are getting somewhere. So they come to all the meetings and they give us the time. But I have a particular thank you to Kate for taking the minutes of the meetings and helping me with consolidating them and putting them in a sensible, rational order. But we'll get there.
Thank you. Any questions for Susan? All right, Tony, can you give us an update on the after-school program project?
Sure. As I mentioned last time, we developed a catalog of after-school providers and services throughout the county last time, and we're still continuing to add to that catalog. More services do pop up as possibilities. What we're spending our time on now is mapping those providers against the school districts in the areas of greatest need as defined by the Children's Collaborative of Success. So East Palo Alto, Redwood City, North Fair Oaks, San Mateo, San Bruno, Daly City, South San Francisco. We're working on all of those areas. So far, it's been kind of interesting. There's quite a range of programs available. We're finding the greatest number and probably the richest, most comprehensive programs in the Ravenswood School District and Redwood City School District. So our efforts now are going to be looking at the other areas and trying to figure out really what's going on there and how some of the school districts who operate their own after-school programs plan to be working when school starts up again. So that's the next step. We're also trying to get more information about the programs themselves all throughout. And finally, we're trying to dig into finding out how what the grant process is, and for schools and CBOs to develop the partnerships and get the funds from the districts to support these programs. So that's where we are now.
Thank you. And Tony, since your microphone is already on, could you also update us on the data dashboard project?
Yeah. Well, we sent our wish list to probation, and not surprisingly, our greatest number of statistics would have to be sourced from probation. And the department worked with county council to make sure they could provide to us the data we were looking for. We heard back from them with a number of links that we hadn't had before. So we are, there'll be data that we're looking for accessible monthly, quarterly, and annually. It's not all the detail we would like, but it's a really good start and a good portion of the information we're looking for. So we have a great start there. Next step would be to get police diversion statistics, and we'll be working with Susan in group and trying to make those contacts, and then putting together some definitions of these statistics we're collecting, and finally coming up with some options for how to display them. So that'll all be coming up in the next month or so.
Any questions for Tony? All right. Johanna, would you give us an update for the Outreach to Underserved Youth and Families project?
Sure. So we have, I've been attending a few community meetings, and the meetings I have attended are I've been giving sort of presentations and information, talking about our commission, what we do, who we're looking to serve, and what work is on the table this year. And so I've met with the San Mateo County Democracy for America. They're a Democratic organization and they also have a social justice task force. So I've attended their regular meeting and am a member of the social justice task force. And so I've been attending that. I also did put it on the agenda for the Farm Hill Neighborhood Association and gave a presentation there on the realignment of juvenile justice in California. I'm a member of Redwood City for Racial Equity, and there's a few members on this call right now. And so I've been updating that group as well on our work and how we hope to reach out to underserved communities in San Mateo County. I also attended Bend the Arc. They're a Jewish social action group. They're statewide, California, and they're working on SB 493, the Promise Act. And so that was a very interesting meeting. That was about Senate SB 493 is, I believe it's a reapportionment of funding for community-based programs. And so that's what I've been up to. Me and Deborah, I should say.
Oh no, you get all the credit for that. That's what you've been working on. She's been working hard. I can't say the same. Thank you. Any questions for Johanna? Thank you. All right, and last but certainly not least, lessons learned during COVID-19 project. Melissa, you want to take that one?
So I was going to take that one.
Oh, sorry about that.
That's
okay. You're on a roll then. Keep going.
Yeah, I know. It's been busy. Okay, so a lot has been going on this front. I want to say that so far, I've met with Atherton, Redwood City, San Mateo, South San Francisco, Daly City, the Sheriff's Department, Hillsborough, and Millbrae. The only one outstanding is East Palo Alto. The interviews have been very insightful. We're interviewing the patrol sergeant. So we actually want to get a glimpse of what's happening on the ground. What do they see? What's happening in their communities? And overwhelmingly, the captains, lieutenants, commanders, different departments have different, classifications. But they've all said, thank you for inviting us to the table. Thank you for including us. We want to be part of this conversation going forward. Atherton is interested in participating with our peer court, and Hillsborough is interested. Atherton has 9 schools in little Atherton that, they think not much is going on, but they have 9 schools. So peer court would be a perfect match with them. Hillsborough is very interested in working with us on other issues. So some quick updates was everyone loves Zoom and it will probably continue. Teen suicide, unfortunately, is up. Mental health crisis calls for teens are up. The crime that they are seeing, what police departments are seeing on the ground is not necessarily crime committed by San Mateo County children. Oftentimes it's from children coming in from the East Bay or San Francisco, particularly in our North County. So they said that crime is down, and they have not seen recidivism as a result of the citing and releasing throughout COVID. And then lastly, I spoke with the chief of police, which is basically Paul Kunkel. He is the chief of Millbrae, but he's also works for the Sheriff's Department. And he told me that the Sheriff's Department they have 12 SROs, and it looks like the SROs may not be something that they're going to continue with. The staffing levels the way they are, he told me that where things stand right now is they do not know, and they would probably not continue with that program countywide. And Manuel Velarde with Redwood City Police Department is retiring, and so they have the contract, the sheriff and contracts with Redwood City, and so that may also be one of the reasons why they're looking at not continuing the SRO. So I think that's it for COVID.
Are there any questions about the COVID project?
Johanna, I have a question on what you learned about SROs. We had also, I forgot to mention one person that we met with in this past month was Officer Tracy Unga, who runs the Police Activities League in San Mateo. And I should say, I think she actually runs the whole youth services group for that police department. And they were probably not going to have one SRO that they support going forward because it looked like the school district wouldn't fund it going forward. Like that there is some, movement happening at the school district levels not to fund SROs. So is that the sort of underlying reason why the sheriff's department is probably not going to have those SROs?
Well, Paul told me that it was that staffing levels were really low and that it is a controversial issue right now. But we have to, I don't know if everybody knows, but every city operates a little differently. So here in Redwood City, for example, the school district pays half of the salary of one officer for the SRO. So it's a mutual agreement. School district pays half of that salary. But in other cities, there's no exchange of funds at all. It just falls under what the police department provides in their service model. So I would say I've learned the majority of police organizations have it under their service model and are not necessarily reimbursed by the school district. So I think the school district may be hearing from community members that this is something that they may not want to have in the schools. And
Right.
So I don't know that it's necessarily funding because very, very few school districts are contributing in that way. Does that help answer your question?
Yeah, that does help clarify. And just to add to what we heard from San Mateo, I believe they had 2 SROs, one funded by the school district and one funded by the department, and so that's why they were probably going down to 1. But I didn't hear anything further about whether they would even go down to 0 because they're hearing from the community or not. But that's what we heard.
The Santa Clara County Juvenile Justice Commission released a report in December, which I sent to commissioners, but might be of general interest. And they did a review of SROs, and their general conclusion or recommendation was that SROs are introducing trauma to youth who otherwise would not be having any contact with police, but are members of vulnerable populations. And I thought that was a really good insight that period.
And was that just a sort of research report, or did they make a recommendation based on that?
It was a statement that they issued. So the statement was a recommendation, basically that SROs should not be in schools. And the SRO model, as Johanna and I have been able to learn, it looks many different ways depending on the police department. And so Sequoia has a SRO there 40 hours a week. And then contrast that with an SRO, but it's a beat officer who happens to be who the school calls and knows the school when there is an issue. So it looks very different. But yeah, but it's, for many students, not non-justice involved students who are keeping their nose out of trouble, it's still putting policing in their ecosystem that may not need to be there. Or that doesn't need to be there for them, right?
If I could just add one more, just to sort of, complete the picture on that, is that with budget cuts in the school districts over, the last decade or so, the school districts have relied more on the police department to deal with behavioral issues. And so often, like when I was growing up, you'd go to the office and they'd call your parents and you'd work it out and everyone would get along. Now with the officer on campus, they're leaning heavy on the police department, where traditionally that should have been done by school staff. And many police departments feel that they don't want to be the heavy. That's not, so there is a lot of inconsistency, and I expect there to be a lot of movement in this space in the next year.
Thank you. Any questions for this project?
Not a question, Deborah, for me, but just more like a clarification. I attended the North Fair Oaks Council meeting last week, I believe, and we did get a report from Captain Corpus, and she reported that there was an increase of larceny during these times. So I'm wondering, Johanna, if you were able to also, was that something that, was it the same data that you were looking at, or are we looking at something differently?
I'm not sure I understand. So you're, what, I don't think I understand what you're asking. So
Johanna, I think that in your report, you said that you had heard from the police departments that crime was going down.
Oh, okay.
And I think Roxanne is asking, that she heard that larceny is going up.
Yes.
So juvenile larceny is going up?
Not necessarily juveniles, but I think overall. So that was the,
So crime overall has gone way up, but I was just addressing juvenile crime. But yes, crime is because of the side, it's a whole nother world in the adult system. But in the juvenile system, they are seeing that the crime is down, mental health needs are up, suicide is up, and they're not seeing recidivism. And that the serious crime often comes from San Francisco and the East Bay. So I hope
but Roxana, you're right. The crimes are property crimes, and sometimes the juveniles are involved as part of the fencing for that property.
Okay, got it. Thank you for the clarification.
Sure.
Any other questions?
And thanks for the shout out, Susan. I appreciate that.
All right, I'm still going to push Pure Court down. Austin said he might be able to be here on 7, so we'll give him a little bit more time. So we'll move on to the last section, the commission report outs. Safik, can you give us a youth commission?
Yeah.
Or, I'm sorry, Amaya, can you give us a youth commission update?
Yeah, sure. So the Civic Engagement Subcommittee recently had a conference for youth engagement in San Mateo County and basically actually all over the state of California. It went very well, and we're looking to host more of these next year. And yeah, it just went really well. And yeah, that's basically it.
Great, thank you. Any questions for the youth commission? Moving on, Melissa, do you want to talk about membership?
Oh, yes. So we interviewed one candidate this last month, and I think we'll have a few more candidates to interview this month. And other than that, I think our new to-be commissioners are doing well. And I am setting up right now with Melanie probation tour. And I think that I encourage all commissioners to be interested in that. They've restructured how probation is being done. And so the assessment center has been merged with investigations. And I think Melanie is really strong at sort of explaining things in greater detail than I ever understood. And so anyway, I'll send out a poll to everyone and definitely do that. I encourage you to be part of that tour.
Thank you, Melissa.
Melissa, do you know when the new commissioners might be sworn in?
Well, I believe you told me and I can't remember. I think it's next meeting.
I heard that they will be next meeting.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Sorry, I wasn't trying to set you up.
No, it's okay. I just got word that Austin is not able to come, so I can present for the Pure Court project plan when you're ready for that.
Great. Why don't we just take a pause here and do that now, and then we'll finish the rest of the report outs.
Hey, Deborah.
Yeah.
Sorry, before Melissa jumps into that, I actually had a question for Amaya and the Youth Commission.
Great.
I know you all are working on recruiting new commissioners for next year. this is around the time that that's happening. So, so I'm just curious, like maybe you could tell us just for a couple minutes what kind of outreach you do for the Youth Commission to some of the neighborhoods that are more affected by juvenile justice. Are you guys doing that kind of outreach?
I can answer that question because I'm probably more involved in recruitment. So what we normally do is we send out emails to boys and girls clubs and also specific school districts where we're lacking representatives. Like we do usually want to try to get high school age people because and people in community colleges because that's the main demographics. But our main source of recruitment is definitely through school districts and some other community organizations that we do talk with.
Great, thanks.
I have a follow-up question on that. Are kids who are currently on probation allowed to be a part of this commission or are included in this?
Yeah, so there's no reason why they couldn't be commissioners.
You made Paul's day.
Thank you. You sure did.
And I'll put the link to the application in the chat in case anyone knows anyone who might be interested.
That's a great idea. Thank you, Sasvik. Melissa, would you like to present about peer court?
Absolutely. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. So Austin just hit his head and is under concussion watch. So that's why he's not here today, but I'd be super happy to present this. So Austin has been participating with the Marin Peer Court and the Santa Clara County Peer Court for 3 years and has been passionate about this ever since. He has put together a really good team that consists of me and Victor, and then we have 3 volunteers, Celia Slavitt, who I believe is going to apply to be on the commission, Angelina Parker, who is also interested in the commission, and Steve Duddy, who was an applicant. We have, the idea of it is for San Mateo County to be an affiliate of the Marin County Youth Transforming Justice model of peer court. It's very trauma informed. It does not use an antagonistic model, for example. And we want to bring that to San Mateo County. So far, Austin has trained 250 youth in the county on how to be participants. And right now, we've been working with Sequoia in particular, but we've also talked to Litia of San Mateo Union to try to find a school to pilot this in. And I just got a message from Carrie Dubois during this meeting saying that the superintendent is interested in doing a pilot in San Mateo Union School District. So that is great. It's probably going to be at one of their charter schools. And so school would be our first. We'd like to sit down with probation and explore, and also with law enforcement and explore how this might fit into their programs. And then funding. Actually, probably funding is the thing that's the biggest obstacle. We have missed all the public funding rounds. And so we're putting together some private funds, or trying to, and that's where we're at. I'm really excited about it. I think that it's another piece of the toolkit when you have a youth who could otherwise be entering the system. And the Marin model has an amazingly high success completion rate and recidivism, outcomes. So that's what that project is about.
I have a question, Melissa.
Absolutely.
I'm interested in the funding. I mean, what body is requesting grants or funding, and who would hold the funds?
Right. That is one of those fundamental questions. So right now, Marin Peer Court would be the legal and the financial organizational framework.
Marin?
So, Marin's
okay.
Peer Court. So we would be a subsidy of Marin's Peer Court at this point. And then the idea might be to spin that off once it's a mature organization, but right now we can take care of all sorts of legal, liability, financial issues by working underneath them. in terms of funding, the funding would be applied for by the committee, I guess. Again, Marine Corps would be the signator on that application, but it would basically be the team who's working on it, requesting funds.
And this, the same question in terms of hiring a case manager, that person would be an employee of Marin.
Of Marin, yes.
Okay.
Yes, so we are not going into business. Our Juvenile Justice Commission is not creating a nonprofit.
Thanks.
Just for your reference, I believe every county, I could be wrong, but every contiguous county has a peer court program other than San Mateo. So this is sort of something that's like standard operating procedure, and we just didn't get the memo.
Or they've shut down, programs are shut down over time. How much would it cost to run one of these programs for a year?
So great question. The cost to run it essentially is in the case manager's salary. And so if you are looking, what I have in my mind in terms of what I have to raise is $110,000. And I'm thinking that some of that's the case manager, most of that's the case manager, but then there's some operating costs in there. In terms of physical location, it's supposed to happen in the court. So there's not a need for facilities in that way. If it's a school-based program, it happens at the school. So there's no facility rental in that case. But whoever we hire as case manager is going to have many hats to wear as it gets started.
I had a question related to that. So is it a part-time job or a full-time job?
Well, it's what it can be. I think we are trying to go big, but it may not be a full-time job to start with. It would be to the extent that a full-time job means that we are serving more children, then I'd like it to be a full-time job.
And also related to that, have you I know you talked to Sequoia, but have you asked them about kicking in any money, since theoretically we would be the ones helping them?
Of course. So no, I haven't, because I haven't talked to the superintendent yet. But yeah, that would be the plan, would definitely be to do that.
Yeah. Oh, also, could you let me know when you meet with them? Because I'd love to come to the meeting too. At least.
Well, Southwick, I would be more than happy to have you at that meeting.
I move we accept the peer court project plan as a project of the JJDPC.
I second.
I'll second. I can't second, never mind.
Melissa, you seconded?
Yeah.
Or at least 3 seconds.
All right. Motion passes.
No, you haven't taken a vote.
Oh, I always forget. All right, let's take a nice little roll call here. Roll call vote. Tony, yes or no?
How about?
Yes.
Rebecca?
Yes.
Melissa? You're on mute.
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Thank you. Monroe?
Yes.
Southwick?
Yes.
Johanna?
Yes.
Susan?
Yes.
And me, yes. So now the motion passes unanimously. What would I do without Susan? Thank you, Susan. All right, now we're going to jump back in. Legislation.
Who seconded the motion? Sorry.
Melissa Wilson.
Oh, thank you.
All right, Karen, I believe you were going to work with Paul, and I think you have an update for us today on legislation.
I do, yes, thank you. And coincidentally, Johanna mentioned the Promise Act, which is what I'm going to update you on. SB 493, also known as the Promise Act, is an act that will completely overhaul the Juvenile Justice Crime Prevention Act and remake the Juvenile Justice Coordinating Councils. And just as a little bit of background, because I needed this, the JJCPA, the Juvenile Justice Crime Prevention Act, was adopted in 2000 and provides counties with funds for juvenile justice crime prevention programs based on local spending plans submitted to the Board of State and Community Corrections, the SCC. This is usually about $150 million in annual funding, and it's distributed to counties based on their share of the state youth population. So this bill has cleared its first hurdle and has passed out of the Senate Public Safety Committee. It's set for a hearing in appropriations on May 3rd. It has a broad basis of support in many youth justice advocacy associations, including Bend the Arc. And it was co-sponsored by the Center on Juvenile and Criminal Justice. It's also supported by the Pacific Juvenile Defender Center. It proposes 3 main reforms. And the number one is that 95% of all JJCPA funds shall be allocated to community-based agencies or public agencies that are not law enforcement, which is perceived to be a big change from what is happening right now. The other 2 points are that the JJCC will be required to have 50% members who are non-governmental community representatives, including local service providers and formerly justice-involved persons, again, perceived to be a change. In fact, there was some discussion too that some counties have not filled all their membership on the JJCCs. So this is meant to bring that back up. And also it will strengthen the county reporting and evaluations by the BSCC by including critical evidence such as youth served and program effectiveness. So it is getting a lot of attention, and it looks like Senator Stephen Bradford has some success so far. And just out of interest, he's from the 35th district, which is LA County, with Inglewood, Carson, Torrance, Gardena, and Compton. So I thought that was interesting.
So Karen, it's passed out of committee. Is it clear what the next steps are, like when it would go to the floor, and then if it passed, when it would take effect?
I believe that I actually, that's a very good question, Monroe, and I'm going to look further into that. So the next step is May 3rd in the Appropriations Committee, but I'm not entirely sure what the time lapse would be beyond that. But I'll look into that.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Any other questions? Oh,
I have a quick question. Was that in the Senate you mentioned, or was that the Assembly?
That's Senate. It's a Senate.
So that was the Senate, and it's going to the Appropriations Committee, and then following that, it would then transfer over to the Assembly. And we have strong support for that in the Assembly, or is there something that we could do, maybe like write letters or something as a commission to ensure that this has a little bit more support?
Well, they are looking for people to jump on board and write letters. And there are, yeah, the Center for Juvenile and Criminal Justice has a template, and they are requesting people to get on board with this. So
awesome. Awesome. And I know if it reaches the governor's desk, he will sign it. So we got to make sure he stays there.
All right. So Paul, you and I will continue to talk about this.
Karen, can you send the information to all of us about how we put together individual letters to send off? You know, where we find the template and that kind of thing?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Could I just add briefly that our own Senator Josh Becker is on that Public Safety Committee. So that's a good thing. And a lot of our faith-based communities are working on this issue actively. And because of COVID, we can actually attend the hearing on the phone, and you can even give public comment. So if that helps, maybe we can get some folks there on the 3rd. Thanks.
Yeah, that's great. I also just wanted to mention broadly that Paul and I will be working together on coordinating legislative updates for all of you. So if there are pieces of legislation as commissioners that you are particularly interested in, or areas because of projects that you're working on that you have a feeling that there's something brewing that you'd like us to look into, Melissa, you have already passed along.
Karen, you frozen.
To send us little emails with what
Lost
you're
you.
interested in or things that you heard or, oh, darn. Is it back?
You're back.
Ah, just the moment when I'm speaking. Anyway, I don't know how much you heard, but if the commissioners are interested in any particular area because of projects you're working on, or you have a sense that something's brewing and you'd like us to look into what may be up, please just send us an email and let us know.
Thank you, Karen.
You're welcome.
And just
All right.
to add that our Senator Becker from San Mateo County co-authored Assembly Bill 333, which would then moot or allow a judge to strike gang enhancements, especially those, there's other legislation that come to follow up that would also allow these deals that juveniles were taking with our district attorneys to be revisited and possibly no longer used in these future sentences. But Senator Becker is supportive of reforming this juvenile system, and we should be writing letters or even just placing calls to them. So I'll work with Corinne more on that, and these are exciting times for the youth.
Thank you, Paul. Any other comments on legislation?
It's great to see legislative updates. Good job, guys.
There was something, I feel like I read somewhere, and it may be in one of our email streams or some other source, about community college access, that there's a right to community college. Was that, okay, that was through us, right? That I learned
Yes.
that? Okay, great. Thank you.
All right. Our community ambassadors, does anybody have updates from the meetings they attended this month? Susan.
April was Child Abuse Prevention Month, so the CAPC's Child Abuse Prevention Councils had a number of programs that were available that I attended. One on April 22nd was called Rediscovering the Beauty Within, and it was presented by the Child Parent Institute and the Greater Bay Area Child Abuse Prevention Council Coalition. And it was a talk by a man named Sasha Joseph Newlinger, who was sexually abused by two of his uncles and a cousin. And from the time he was 4 until he was 8. And when he was 8, he saw that these uncles were also abusing his little sister. And so he reported it. And for the next, from age 8 to 17, he was involved in court cases against those 3 people. And he found out in the course of that his father had been abused by these 2 uncles who were his older brothers. So it was multi-generational sexual abuse. And one of the things he's done is he's made a movie about his childhood sexual abuse and recovery. Turns out his father had done like 200 hours of videos that he could use to show the relationships between, that includes video of the uncles, not of doing the abuse, but you get a sense of the kind of person they are. It's called Rewind, and I think it might be worthwhile for us to get hold of it and take a look at it. On April 23rd, CAPC of Santa Clara County presented Race and Disproportionality in the Work of Child Welfare Related Agencies, which included several presentations, one from Dr. Darcy Merritt from the New York University Silver School of Social Work on why Black people catch ACS cases more than white people. And she talked a lot about how we criminalize poverty. We expect people to do things that they cannot do because they're poor and they don't have the resources to do them. And then Dr. Brett Drake of Washington University in St. Louis talked about Child Protective Services and race, a look outside the box. And he started out with a statement that is rather shocking, but probably true. Child welfare today is not a broken system. It's a system that needs to be broken. The people they serve need material support like rent and cash. And social workers need to avoid tunnel vision. They need to look at context. Why didn't the parent get the child to the appointment? What is outside their control? Then Dr. Amana Ayub and Dr. Stacy Papanow talked about child trauma and immigration process. And she covered a lot of what ICE has been doing and how Charles Nelson, a professor of pediatrics at Harvard Medical School, said PTSD, which these children suffer, who are taken from their families or otherwise detained, or anyway, he said the PTSD is a real physical injury. The effect is catastrophic. There is so much research on this that if people paid any attention at all to the science, they would never do this. And then today, I attended the second annual Teaching Cannabis Awareness and Prevention that is offered by Stanford University. And there was a keynote and two breakouts. The keynote was protecting public health and safety in an era of cannabis legalization, implications for youth. And I think one of the most striking things that she said was that cannabis is damaging to those under 25 because THC replaces or alters the binders in the prefrontal cortex, which is still forming. And the effects can be long-term and can be associated with school absences and dropouts. Youth should not be using cannabis, but right now, the most prevalent users are those from age 18 to 25. So we need policy directly related to youth. Stanford University also, one of the breakouts was on their tobacco and vaping prevention toolkits, which are a free resource to anybody who wants to use them. And they're updated continually as they get more information. And the second one was brief intervention, BI, have a conversation, not a confrontation, as an alternative to suspension for student cannabis users. And he was pointing out that what has typically happened when a child is caught with tobacco, alcohol, or drugs on campus is they get a 3 to 5 day suspension, which gives them more time to use the drugs that we're trying to punish them for using, and gets them far behind in school and is more of a problem. So the brief intervention is a method that they can use that keeps the child in school. They have like 4 appointments with a counselor, and they go through 6 questionnaires or worksheets where they're asked, what is good about your using it? What does it do that you like? And what does it do that you don't like? And they take them through, an analysis of what their life is like now because they used it and what it
Susan?
could be like. Yeah.
Can you wrap that up? We're a couple minutes over already.
I'm sorry. Anyway, it sounded like a really good restorative method, and apparently it's been very effective. So
thank you so much. I'm sorry I kept you all a little late. For anybody else who has updates, could you just please email them to me? I'll put them all together and send them out to the distribution list of people who attended so everybody gets the information. Joanna had a quick update, which is May is Mental Health Awareness Month. So look for lots of virtual events and ways to help end the stigma. Thank you all very much for attending tonight. Melissa will stay on for anybody who would like to continue after that, but if I don't hear any other objections, we'll just officially end this meeting, and whoever wants to stay on can stay on.